Have you tried to rip down the length of a board with a crosscut saw? Here's 15 strokes with a crosscut. And here's 15 strokes with a rip. So I learned that lesson after trying to size some boards. I thought the saw was broken. It wasn't. It wasn't the best tool for a job. You need a rip saw. So I hit the internet and started scanning eBay for a used or vintage rip saw. I was looking for a low tooth count and big teeth. I found a vintage Disston D-8 Handsaw, 26 inches, 5.5 TPI, and got it for $30 plus shipping. The saw was dirty and had a couple of dings, one behind the tip and one towards the back. I'll show you that later. I started by disassembling the saw. The screws had probably never been broken loose. Some were tougher than others. There was also crud in the slots of the screw heads that needed to be cleaned out so I could get a good bite without marring the top of the screw head. This one was extra stubborn, so give it a little tap. Just try to break up the gunk before getting after it with a little more muscle and breaking that one loose. So here I am got the screws out, about to tap out the nuts, put a little board back there and lightly tap them out. They're pretty crudded up with surface rust and age, so I'll end up soaking these in vinegar for just a few minutes before I brush them off and polish them up and get the vinegar will help the crud get loosened up. So with all that out, it's ready to take off the handle. It was pretty stubborn to get off. I worked slowly, took my time, trying to get it to move little bit by little bit and slide off. So I know it's hard to see here, but it is bending a little bit to the right as you go down the saw blade towards the tip. So I'm going to need to take care of that. So I start by flexing it to see if it'll spring back to straight. My approach is working the saw based on Rob Razinski's video. I'll put that link below, as well as some other videos I found useful, and both on correcting the bends in the saw plate, but also in sharpening. I'm not sure if what I did was right or perfect, but it was a learning experience for me, and I did end up with great results. I first start by, marking a little bit of the area with a grease pen, and then lightly tapping the area of the bend. I took my time and kept at it. As you'll see, I learned that I could hammer with that lump hammer a little harder than I started with. I didn't need to be so cautious. Speed this up in a little bit, but you can see I keep going back and forth, checking the work, to try not to overdo it. There I am a little bit harder, but I am staying away from the teeth. But on the videos I saw, you got near the teeth, the middle, and the top, and you kind of did those 3 zones. So here's a sight down the saw. Once it gets into focus here, you can see the bend there. So it's a little better than it was, but I'm going to keep at it. So I end up switching to a different spot to take a break from that area. There was a little bend down in this area. And I keep going back and forth, go back to the really big issue bend in the tip. I think that would really affect the sawing. Here's another view. It's getting straighter. I check it for flat against my bench top, trying to get it as flat as I can. So I end up switching here to the Warrington hammer, using it as a peen hammer to encourage the saw blade to relax or release tension so it can swing back into place. I end up going down right above the teeth all the way down the saw, and right above on the top all the way down the saw. Try to get those edges to get it to relax, and results seem to be pretty good. So taking some of the crud off the saw, I used some crud cutter with some 00 or 000 steel wool. End up just trying to get the gunk off. I don't want to lose the etching, but I want to get the surface rust off, and it ends up getting all of the surface rust off, and some of these other markings off, as you'll see. Yeah, I did go through some like 320 or 220 grit sandpaper, 3-in-1 oil, just kind of threw everything at it to get it a little bit shined up. Really worked at the end where most of the crud was, and here's underneath the handle. I want to make sure I get all that surface rust off and get it a little smoother. And so there's the end result. Some elbow grease. Now on to the screws and nuts. Just using a wire brush to scrub the gunk off. I think I did rinse them with water. And then I'm transitioning to kind of scrubbing the teeth with that wire brush. I didn't hit that area with sandpaper and stuff, so just clean off the teeth a little bit on the sides, and then onto the handle. So I did a light sanding, and then end up wiping up with some Danish oil. Just really got the dirt off. I really didn't want to take off all of the finish, but got the dirt off the handle, the prior user's crud, and a little bit of coda here of this Danish oil. So now I'm moving on to sharpening. So there's my file I'm going to use. I'm just kind of checking for the level of the teeth. Again, really based on some of the videos. Yeah, it's a lovely sound, isn't it? So I just kind of flatten the tip of the teeth, make sure we're level, and then I move on to the kind of the triangle file and do the business with sharpening the teeth. I'm going to go here in a minute and kind of back up and take a Sharpie and mark them all so I can see where I've been and if I'm hitting the faces the right way. I'm by no means an expert at sharpening a saw, but gave it a good effort here, and the results ended up being pretty good. So here we are with a little bit of reassembly now, getting a light coating of 3-in-1 oil, especially underneath that handle. We'll also do that with all these screws and nuts. But first, I'm gonna polish it. There's my strobe with the compound on it, trying to get a little shine on, especially the medallion, and we'll get it all put back together. Again, working with some 3-in-1 oil to hopefully keep the rust out of there at bay, and taking my time and making sure that I'm not forcing any issues. You'll see me kind of take my time and then get the back nuts on here lightly. I'm not going to just crank one down, and then I'm just going to get them all seated a little bit and then crank them down evenly. Yeah, this guy needed a little bit of help. He wasn't quite in there right, and again, I just wanted to take my time, and I didn't want to compress any wood and force any issues, so a little bit of effort there. I got it to kind of pop in. I remember how to tap that one out anyway, but here you go, all put together. Light coating of oil, that rag in a can, and then we'll move on to the test cut. There we go. First cuts with the resharpened, restored saw, and it just starts to mow through the wood. So that's what I was looking for, those rip cuts. That cut isn't perfectly straight, but I'm going to blame that on me and my technique rather than the saw. So here once again is a crosscut saw for comparison. A lot more teeth. And it's a great crosscut saw, but it just doesn't want to rip. Not like that rip saw. So here's another look at the restored and sharpened Disston D-8, $30 on eBay. Overall, a great purchase. You need a rip saw. I'll put links below to the videos that I referenced in restoring and sharpening the saw. Have a good one.